Hey everybody, thanks for having me. We've spent the whole day together, we've shared ideas, we shared a meal. I feel like I've gotten to know you all, so I wanted to share a little story about my weekend and my conversation with my wife. We were at the Ed Sheeran show on Saturday. Anyone else there? One? All right, so I have to be somewhat honest in this story. And Ed tells a story about how his aspiration was to be well known across England, and his approach was to start playing local pubs. And then he set out and spent the next 7 years playing, recording, and writing music every day of his life for 7 years. And it was an inspiring story, and on the drive home, my wife tells me, that was a great story about karma and talent being discovered. And my nerd mind went to product management and I said, no, that's an example of execution trumping vision and strategy yet again. So this is good confirmation bias of my philosophy that the secret to success for product teams is to execute really well. And you can get your strategy wrong and your vision wrong, but you can't get your execution wrong. And I've spent the last 10 years compiling what I believe are best practices on how to get product teams as people, not AI bots, to interact together and produce value. So my goal today is to share some of those highlights with you and hope that you walk away with 1 or 2 tangible actions you can take to make your product teams more effective. So now I'll go from something less relatable like becoming a global superstar to something hopefully more relatable to all of you and certainly to me. I am the dad of 3 young girls, and I've been to my fair share of 4-year-old soccer games. They are fun, but often pretty ugly. The kids are clustered together, they don't know their role, they don't play their position, and they're often dawdling. They're off in the field picking flowers. Fast forward a few years, and it's a totally different story. The kids know their position, they run coordinated plays, and they hustle. And it's not age and strength that makes the difference, it's the approach to the game, and the difference is execution rigor. Now, for my sanity, I am not a youth soccer coach. I am the CPO at Thumbtack. Thumbtack is a technology company that helps millions of people take care of their homes. We guide them on what to do, when to do it, and when it's time to hire a professional, we pair them with our community of 300,000 local pros. As Thumbtack's CPO, I've seen firsthand the difference that execution rigor makes to a product org. This approach has taken us from good to great. We're approaching this totally different, we're approaching execution completely differently now. We're shipping 50% faster, and we're doubling our impact, all with the same team size. We're working faster and smarter. Today I'm going to share with you how we did that. Now, to be fair to the team, to be clear, the Thumbtack team was nothing like 4-year-olds playing soccer when I got there. On paper, we are already a Premier League organization. We had a strong culture, an exciting strategy, and hardworking and talented people aligned around a mission. We were working hard, but we weren't delivering our full potential. During one early meeting, one of the product managers was rallying his team, and he said, you know, we set these audacious goals, and we've agreed that like 70% of an audacious goal is success, and you know, we hit 60%. So 60 is basically 70, so good job, team. And while I applauded his cheerleading, we can't go around high-fiving missed targets. In a more forgiving market, that might have been enough, but today, our companies have to be lean and effective. Thomas Edison said, vision without execution is hallucination. To move our business forward, we have to stop seeing things and start doing things. We need to supercharge our impact. That brings me to execution rigor. So what does this mean? At a high level, it means that everyone knows exactly what they as an individual can do to move the company forward. One step deeper, it means clarity, alignment, and urgency. First, clarity. Have clear goals. I sat in a meeting once where we spent half an hour debating whether or not we hit a goal. Clearly that was a waste of time, and clearly that goal was not motivating execution over the last 6 months. Second is alignment. No side hustles. We take on team-wide goals, we stay focused on them. We work as a team and we win as a team. Lastly, urgency, a bias to action. Done's better than perfect. Small delays compound over time, eroding your opportunity for impact. Teams have to take the responsibility upon themselves to remove their blockers to make sure that it doesn't impact progress. With these principles, clarity, alignment, and urgency, we set out to reshape Thumbtack's internal execution approach. As any Thumbtack home professional can tell you, when you're kicking off a major renovation, you have to take inventory of what you're keeping and what you're changing. For us, that meant an assessment of strengths and gaps. The best practices I'm going to share here worked for our org, but I encourage you to think about how they can be tailored to your organization, your strengths and your gaps. Also, we were methodical in how we rolled this out. We changed one step at a time over the course of our 6-month development cycle, keeping what was working and tweaking what wasn't. This is our 5-step product delivery cycle. Steps 1 and 2 we do before delivery, it's shown here in purple. Steps 3 and 4 happen during product delivery, shown in green. Step 5 happens after, in yellow. We systemically built execution rigor into each one of these steps. I'm going to take you through and give you pro tips on each one. The first step is to build alignment through collaborative planning. A classic problem is the choice between top-down planning and bottom-up planning. With purely top-down planning, you get these lofty goals, and teams end up scratching their heads, having no clue how to deliver them. Bottoms-up processes, this is what we had before these changes. Very tractable goals, but the teams don't have the coordination necessary to tackle big problems together. Our solution here was what we called the W-shaped approach to road mapping. Some of you may have heard about this. To set the stage, we structure our EPAD, Engineering, Product, Analytics, and Design, into pods. A pod is 10 to 15 people, roughly 10 engineers, a PM, an analyst, a designer, miscellaneous discipline depending on the content space. Pods roll up to pillars, and pillars roll up to org leadership. The W-shaped planning approach starts with a top-down guidance memo. We outline our strategy and the most important things to accomplish in the next 6 months. Pillar leads augment this with context that's specific to their area and pass it on to the pods and ask them how they will contribute to this top-down set of goals. Pods then draft plans, share them with pillar leads, who then think about how do we integrate the 15, 30, 45 different sets of plans into a cohesive structure. Then plans are finalized and shared up through all the different levels to create alignment. The whole process takes about 6 weeks for us. The value here is in the marriage of top-down vision with bottom-up realism. Because all levels are active participants in the process, we now create plans that we are deeply aligned on. Step 2, setting goals for everything that matters. Too often goals are set on a subset of what team members are expected to do. The CEO's pet project, that one metric that's lagging. I believe that at a pod level, everything that goes on should be focused on clear goals with measurable results. Back to no side projects. If you define your goals too narrowly, let's say just on one product metric, disciplines will end up defending their particular focus area, creating a three-way tug of war. PMs and analysts might really focus on that one user metric, but the engineers will additionally worry about tech debt. The designers will worry about visual polish and long-term visioning. They're all going to say they agree with the roadmap, but many of the disciplines are going to be carving out 20% of their mind share and their time on things that are specific to them and not shared as a team. You've got to tackle that problem head on during the planning process. Make sure everyone's 100% committed to the shared roadmap. Now you might get pushback but there's all these important things that I want to do. If it's that important, we need to elevate it to a goal for the team and all be committed to getting it done, regardless of what hat you wear on the team. With this approach, the debate around how we allocate our time happens during road mapping and doesn't get in the way during delivery. In our process, we now set goals broadly. We measure metrics, we measure milestones. We measure short-term movements and our progress toward long-term projects. We measure ourselves on delivering new features and also paying down tech debt, improving design polish, and all the other housekeeping things that we need to make sure we do on a regular basis so they don't accumulate. The goal is to create focus. Everything we do is prioritized, resourced, and goaled. If it's not on the goals list, we don't do it. In this model, all disciplines have shared accountability for everything that goes on. Designers care about shipping the design polish. Engineers care about shipping the design polish. The PM cares about paying down the tech debt. Everyone's in the same boat together. Now, once you have agreed what you're going to goal on, how do you decide how far to push it? At Thumbtack, we've adopted the process of defining the range of expectations. We use base and stretch goals. First, we set a base goal. This is something we're pretty confident about hitting. It's fair to expect of our teams that they'll hit this mark. We hold them accountable to it. Missing it means something went wrong with our strategy or execution. Importantly, the leadership team can now make critical decisions as a company with confidence that we can count on at least this level of delivery. Have you ever sat in a budgeting meeting and your PM says, maybe I'll hit 1x and maybe I'll hit 10x? How do you budget for that? This creates clarity of expectations within the team. Then we set an aspirational stretch goal. This makes sure we're being ambitious. It's a level that only a small portion of our teams will hit. Stretch goals are where we really celebrate. It's when we reassess and double down on what's working because the delivery has exceeded our expectations. We found that the combination of these stretch goals offers the best blend of these base and stretch goals, offers the best blend of accountability and ambition. Now, setting plans and setting targets happens before we start the work. Now let's get on to the during phases, the rhythms of our execution. Step 3 is about meetings, everybody's favorite topic, right? A well-run meeting is a beautiful thing, but more often than not, recurring meetings can go off track and become zombie meetings. It's a calendar block that lacks a clear purpose, but it's somehow too important to skip. The key step here is to find the business outcomes rather than the meetings that you care about. Instead of leaders setting up a calendar with cadences of meetings and saying when they want to be updated on what, we've decided to enumerate the specific goals of our weekly processes and appoint a specific person to accomplish that goal. That person gets to decide whether it's a meeting, an email, a shared dashboard, a shared tool. They figure out how to most efficiently accomplish the goal. They decide when we need a discussion and when we can self-serve. At Thumbtack, we decided there's only 3 things that we have to get right as a leadership team on a weekly basis. The first one is we need to make sure that everyone understands the overall performance of the business and how our initiatives are moving the ball. That's what we call a business review. The second thing our rhythms need to accomplish is that we have to deep dive on specific topics and make decisions quickly. This is what we call a product review. Lastly, we need to make sure that we're keeping pace. We need the teams to take agency over removing their blockers to ensure that delays don't hold us back from accomplishing our goals. That's what we call an execution review. Being specific about these 3 outcomes of our regular rhythms helps us maintain clarity, alignment, and urgency in our delivery. And by being specific about what we're trying to accomplish and appointing someone whose goal is to reach that outcome as efficiently as possible, it eliminates a ton of meeting overhead for everybody on the team. All right, now on to step 4. Because we spend so much time aligning up front on our strategy, goals, etc., there's nothing more important for the team than to hit them. And as we execute on our plans, we need visibility into those goals over time. Providing that visibility is step 4. My first days at Thumbtack, I asked the team member, how is your team performing against their goals? And they said, let me go pull up that document from 6 months ago with the goals list. I'll pull some data and I'll get back to you. How we're tracking is a question that anyone in the company should be able to answer instantly at any moment. How do you do this? It's pretty simple. Dashboards, lots of great tools out there. But it's not like we didn't have dashboards a year ago. We had dashboards everywhere. What we didn't have was one dashboard that showed the whole picture. One place where leaders can see how we're tracking, where individual contributors can see how their initiatives roll up to higher level strategies, where people could see what other teams were held accountable for. One of my measures of internal collaboration was when people would say, I don't even know what that team does over there. No excuses for that anymore. To fix that, we set up a centralized dashboard with all our goals laid out. One top-level company dashboard drills down into pillar and pod goals. It's our single source of truth for where we're investing, how we're doing, and where there are issues to address. I view this as more of the source of truth than the roadmap. Now, if you'll humor me for a second, I'm going to take us on a little side quest about dashboards because I really like to geek out on this. You've all seen dashboards that probably look like this. Can you tell me whether or not this team is on track to hit their goal? I can't. There's a way that we can change this around to tell a much more meaningful story. A former colleague named Simon Cross wrote a blog post recently called The Perfect Chart. And it's all about how small changes in the way you visualize data can dramatically change product team execution. So I'm going to steal his thoughts here. The first step in making a good dashboard that motivates action is to get the timeline right. So I always tell teams, fix your x-axis starting at the beginning of the last cycle and go all the way to the end of the current cycle. By fixing this timeline, you get historical context, and the dashboard itself builds urgency by showing where we are in the cycle, and importantly, how close we are to getting to the end and running out of time to accomplish our goals. Next, you layer on your goal. The most common way to do this is just draw a horizontal line. This line is useful exactly 1 day per cycle. On the last day, the team either hit it or they missed it. How can we make this better? A more sophisticated chart would show a straight line from your starting point to your ending point. Much better. Now I can see that this team is actually falling short, right? I should go intervene. Except what I found with this is that when you talk to the team, there's always, their interpretation might be different than the straight line. Maybe they spent a lot of time up front building infrastructure, or maybe they ran a bunch of learning tests and now they're about to start scaling things up. What was their plan all along? So in our dashboards, what we do is we take this to the next level and we ask the team to draw their expected path to success. It's often a hockey stick. Now you can argue about the shape of this hockey stick, but after that's done, by letting the team draw their path to success, you understand their own expectations. In this case, this team's actually ahead. So I'm just gonna leave them alone. So this is why I love dashboarding and why I believe it's so important to get right if you want your team to execute well. The goals you choose show everyone what matters, and the data shows what's working and what needs your senior level attention. Now I start every morning with a cup of coffee and I read this one top-down dashboard, and it's honestly my favorite part of my day. I get to decide where to invest my time to make sure all these goals become a reality. Now we're in the home stretch. We're at step 5. Step 5 is how you recognize the delivery that your teams have made. You've seen throughout this cycle that execution rigor is about keeping people focused on what matters most. Telling people what you're going to recognize them for very clearly at the end of the cycle empowers them to focus on what matters most during the cycle. In the past, we had a more open-ended approach to how we wrote performance reviews. Our tool would ask employees, name 2 or 3 things that you did that was really impactful. They'd spend all day writing these novels. They'd explain the context of why they chose to go down this path and what they built and how awesome it was. It doesn't tell me anything about what I need to know. Did your team accomplish the goal that you were chartered to set out and accomplish? And how did your work contribute to that? Now we're much more explicit about how we recognize what goals teams achieved. Today, our assessment process starts with teams themselves self-grading on how they did relative to their base and stretch goals. That team self-rating forms the basis of individual impact ratings for every team member. This becomes the what of their review. We then also factor in our company values and the behaviors that we want to reward. This is the how of execution. We all know that brilliant jerks can drive impact in the short term, but they can erode the team dynamics really quickly, so we want to address this. By explicitly tying the assessment of the individual to the self-assessment of the teams that they serve, we reinforce alignment with what matters most. Fundamentally, you have the same goals as your team, and you all succeed or fail together. So that's our 5-step approach that we've created to improve the execution rigor throughout our product cycle. We've been using it for a full year now, long enough to see the difference. Here's what the impact looks like for us. We've seen a 40 to 50% increase in code deploys and experiments. These are our inputs. We're working faster. More importantly, we've doubled the impact of our initiatives. We're consistently hitting our long-term strategic milestones. The vast majority of our teams are now hitting their base expectations, and almost half the teams achieved their stretch goal. We're also working smarter. And importantly, the teams have really embraced these changes. We're working happier. Here's a few comments from a recent survey of the org. As you think about how execution rigor can apply to your organization, remember this isn't about fixing something that's broken. Thumbtack was in a great spot when we started down this path, but this rigor has taken us from good to great. And we did it without adding any extra headcount or any additional burnout on the team. We're working better and feeling better doing it. So this might be the most important takeaway. If you're feeling like you're being asked to do more with less, if you're under pressure to deliver within tight constraints, if you feel like your team's back is against the wall, there's still a way to win. To the CPOs in the room, you have the ability to do all of these things and the responsibility to elevate execution of your entire organization and now allow people to work smarter, faster, and happier. And for team leaders, your opportunity may be a little bit more localized, but even at any level, you can still apply these principles and become a model for execution rigor within your org. Whether it's your planning process, how you track goals, the way you reward performance, wherever you need to improve, these approaches can help you achieve more with your existing team and work smarter and faster, and hopefully be happier doing it. So remember that this is an ongoing process, a commitment of continuous improvement. It's about building clarity, alignment, and urgency into everything you do, all of your processes, all of your approaches. If you're working with actual 4-year-olds, I can't promise that this will be effective or even feasible. But if you've got a product organization that isn't delivering to its fullest potential today, this approach can help you win as a team, season after season. Thanks so much.